anyway, no. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Why did you choose the name Joaquin in this immigrant?
It just came, same reason, I don't know, I don't even know why I chose a woman. I messed with it for a long time. There were several people, and then all of a sudden when Sophia came, I realized that was it. I realized, bingo, got it. It's like she said to me, hey, Pendejo, you've been looking for a while? You finally found me. And I was like, that's cool. And then all started, I was driving my car one day, and I have a retreat. I have a ranch or a farm, and I have guest cottages, really nice ones, that the young rich kids in Santa Fe come up and they want to rent, but I won't rent to them. These are only for young kids who are trying to finish their poetry or their novel, and I focus almost entirely on Latinas and Latinos, right? Without apology. I give them the most beautiful place in the world. No working. They get their food. There's hiking. There's 5 different hiking. We have a waterfall, a lake. We have a river, right? Very cool place to finish your book. And I was driving my car one day, and I'm a Catholic. Even though my new novel, you're not going to believe I'm a Catholic. It's about, it's about the pedophilia of the Catholic Church, which is like, ooh, right? Which is interesting too, because in New York they offered me 2 different publishing contracts for it, and I turned them down because I thought, since there's so many Me Too movements and the Latinas are doing their work, why are there no Chicanos or Mexicanos writing about that topic? Where's our novel? Well, where are the men writing about sexual predators? We're like, it doesn't exist. When it's like, what is going on with this? The women are out there doing it. Everybody else is out there doing it. Again, it's the Mexicanos and the Chicanos that are staying back with their machismo quiet. You gotta break that shit, right? What is this about, man? So I decided to write a novel about it, right? And instead of giving it to Random House or some other big publisher, I gave it to the Chicano publishing house in hopes that it would just sweep across the Chicano literary scene, right? Nicolas Caneo's down at Arte Público in Houston. Went to him. He snapped it up. He said, it's brilliant. I was driving my car, the radio was on. Catholic Charity said, we have a family here from Burma. And I have an internship program where I get kids all over from Africa, from England, from India, from everywhere, right? They come in from Yale, different colleges, Vassar, NYU. They stay a couple of months and they work with us. We have an internship program and they take off, right? Anyway, so I hear them think about this family that got burned out. They were the last house. They were burned out. Not because they were Catholic. That doesn't really matter. They could have been Mormons. I don't care. But they were the last house. And the guy had 3 daughters, and I got 2 daughters, and I got 3 sons. And he took all his family and he took off, you know. And I really admired this man and his family and stuff. What they didn't say that was that his daughter was mentally challenged, and so was one of his other kids. I learned that because I called him up and said, I'll help. I'll give him an apartment. I'll pay for it. I'll give him a job. And so that I met him, Sepo. His name was Sepo. And it talks about this in this book, if you've got it. It's called Sepo. And I met him, and he helped me go up to the mountains and help me build those cottages for young kids, right? To come out and finish their poetry books and stuff. It was Sepo that did it. And I told Sepo, I'm going to give you an acre of land. I'm going to take my tractor over there, and you can take my tractor. And he said, can I bring a friend from Vietnam? And we're the best farmers in the world. I said, sure. So I was going to pay for his friend from Vietnam in a refugee camp to come. And I can't tell you how wonderful this was to befriend a man like that, you know? And so I go, he worked with me for about 4 months, 5 months. Then I went to go pick him up one day, and I looked in the apartment, the door was kicked in, the apartment was empty. What the hell happened here? The neighbors came out and said that INS came in the middle of the night and arrested him and his children and took him out in plastic handcuffs. And that got me angry. And that's why I wrote this book. For Sepo. It's odd because I wrote the book for Sepo and it has a woman's name. So I don't know how the muse worked in that case, but it worked. I wrote it and it's what I wanted to say. And that's that. Yeah. So it was because of somebody that I met that I wrote the book. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
My friends were curious. In the back of Blood In, Blood Out, the actual DVD, there's a picture of Baco dancing with a woman in a red dress. That scene never appears in the movie, and we've been wondering for years what happened to that, or who was that lady?
Ooh, that was terrible that day, bro. That's a great question. That's terrible. We had a whole segment in the Blood In, Blood Out where this Chicano was a union organizer, and she was actually my girlfriend. She's actually married to Paco today in real life. Yeah, they're actually married. We had to go tell her. We had to cut out her entire, the whole thing from her, which was really bad. And not only that, in the San Quentin scenes, we had like every scene in San Quentin had Indians in it, Indios, like Carifas. We had to cut all that out. You know? And I'll even tell you this, that normally some people don't know. The reason that it was originally titled Bound by Honor, take this, was because in I'm not going to curse. I told my daughter I wouldn't curse, and I'm not going to curse. Eisner saw it. Eisner's wife, the guy who ran Disney, they own Hollywood Pictures, who did the movie for us. They went to the theater in Las Vegas, where we premiered all over the country. His wife went with them. And I said, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything, okay? I'm not going to say anything. His wife went with him, right? And when she saw the title Blood In, Blood Out, which I love, she said, oh, you can't use that title. That has blood in it. It's going to be bloody. There's blood everywhere. Because of her, we had to change it to Bound by Honor. But we did get permission to put it on DVD, Blood In, Blood Out. So because of her, we had a start, and then we had a false start. We had to stop and then start again to change the title. Can you dig it? So it was about to be released, but because she thought it was offensive and might cause something, right? Look, American me. I told Eddie, you're an idiot if you do this. You're a total idiot if you do it, right? And I'm not going to tell you the history behind how he wanted to buy Blood In, Blood Out. He came to my house, came to New Mexico, all that. I ain't going to tell you any of that, right? I just said, you can't lie about this dude. You can't lie about him being raped in prison when he wasn't. Even if you want to get the Academy Award, you can't play that card. Yeah, well, I'm going to play it. I said, you don't play it without me. Because he hired me to write, so I wrote the Zoot Suit scene, right? And then when I heard he was going to do that, I said, I'm out of it. I'll see you later. And he never paid me to write the Zoot Suit scene. So the Vato still owes me today. Can you believe that? The guy that's your hero, the one that you have posters of in your room, hi Eddie, this guy owes me money. Call him up and tell him, pay his debt. Pay his bill, right? Okay, I didn't want to spoil any more of your little sweet Disney dreams. I could break all your dreams with my story, but I'm not going to go there, right? All I'm going to say is that when she was over there and she didn't like the title, we had to bring back all the movies from all over the country and retitle them and send them back out.
Yeah.
Because one lady didn't like the word blood. And guess what? There was not one single act of violence except on me. In some crazy theater in London, some crazy maniacal white dude runs at me with a knife. I'm like, orale, what's up? I mean, if you got some shit to say, you don't have to say it with a knife. You know? Not one incident. What happened in America? Eddie's two top people, and let me tell you, they happen to be women, got murdered because of what he did, and then escaped, and then wasn't held accountable. Two Chicanas got killed. Mothers But no, you didn't hear any of that, because like most of it, all media-driven information is tainted with a bias. All of it. Like, when is the last time you got any real information that wasn't driven by a corporation, by a university, by a bank? When? Name it. When was the last time you really got information that wasn't driven by a corporation? Your phones? Driven. Your clothes? Driven. The university? God, driven. You know? Really, I mean, I don't want to go there. One more question and we're done. When we go out there and sign books, if you want to buy some, I appreciate it, so I'll have to clear them back. One more question, go. Yes?
How is it, as a poet, that you sustain a book-length collection, particularly in the forward movement of the poems and the insistence upon the reader to be engaged and to keep hearing the violence, particularly over and over again, without wearing out a reader?
I think if the reader's worn out by a poem, if the poem is well written, then I think the reader's been reading the wrong poems. I think in America you have a tendency to read poems that are very nice. I'm not talking about curse words. I'm just talking about real poems that have to do with politics, innocence, injustice, prison, drug addiction. I'm talking about pedophilia. I'm talking about real issues that affect us. We don't get those in our anthologies in class. We get nice stuff. You know? So when someone reads poetry to you that shocks your sensibilities, it begins to make you wake up, and you almost feel a sense of annoyance with this guy for making you pissed. That's a good thing. That's a poem. For instance, let me give you an instance. I have a poem in a book, and it's called Yo Soy Julia. It's about a woman who gets up every morning in San Francisco, goes to the same bus stop, and goes to work and cleans toilets. Cleans the houses for the rich. And it's a powerful poem because the boyfriends that she has at night when she goes out on weekends, they're gangsters. And the poem's about taking their pistols and putting them away. She actually gets to the hands of the gangster, puts the gun away, and the hand, and he puts it on her breast, and she's there. And she's able to tame the gangsters by touching her beautiful body, right? This is a woman who goes to work every single day and has gone through 3 mayors and 4 governors. And every single day, it's rain, sun, shine, everything. You see her at that damn bus stop, waiting for the bus to pick her up. So I'm reading at Berkeley, right? About Julia. And some liberal academic woman in the back stands up and says, "I'm Julia." Now every poet I know would be like, "Yeah, you are, yeah." I said, "No, you ain't. You never could be." Ooh. The whole white feminist movement said, "Vete pa la chingada, buddy." I'm okay with that. I've been in front of judges before, right? But you ain't Julia. I don't care how many marches you've been in for this right or that right. You ain't Julia. They somehow try to usurp the narrative of the Chicana who's worked for rich people sweeping their homes for 50 years. They want to come in and say, "That's me." That ain't you. You had your husband working for the insurance company, you drive a brand new Beamer, your kids go to the best school. That ain't, you march for Me Too movement, you march for women's liberation, you march for this and that. You ain't Julia, and you will never be Julia. Julia is Julia, and there's 30 million of them out there. And they are never mentioned in the women feminist literature, ever. They are left in these warehouses, in the maquiladoras, they're left in the fields, and they get raped, and they get beat up, and they get preyed upon, and there's not a whole lot of shit going on in the newspapers about them. If you have something happen here at the university, headlines everywhere. Something happens along the frontera, like it has to 300 Mexicanos who are burned and beaten and brutalized. What happens? You get 1 inch in the back of the newspaper. So let's not create this narrative that keep on running and running and running like I have an issue. Your issue ain't nothing until you stop and deal with the Mexican women. Until you stop and you deal with the Latina women who are in schools who never get the opportunities that they deserve. On and on and on. And I'm not here to advocate anything. I got my hands full just trying to raise this beautiful daughter and his son's still at home. I got my hands full going across the country trying to do prison reform. I got my hands full on. I'm going to the South to tour the entire South to try to create an alliance between the Chicano people and the black people. I've been invited by all the Baptist churches to come. Isn't that beautiful? I'll be speaking at the same place that Martin Luther King spoke, and I'm invited by them. Will you please come out, Mr. Baca, to the Baptist churches, the theaters, the schools, the prisons. And I'm not going to go out there and only thing I'm going out there for is we need to come together. Because once we do that, holy man, holy. And guess what? This is what's beautiful about that. Is you got all these black people that were on Skype with me, they're all heavy hitters in all these major Baptist churches where they have 3,000 to 6,000 people come. 2 services on Sunday. And then there's me, and I'm listening, and we're all talking, right? Guess who organized that? White ladies. White men. I'm talking to all these black people saying, well, who's the one who's going to set this up? Oh, she's the one that started it. And the Skype goes over there, and there's these old white ladies that are like, hi, Jimmy. I'm like, you all started this whole thing? They're like, yeah, it's needed. We need to do this. So you can never, I realize it more and more, you can't be putting up walls anymore. Me against whites, whites against me. You can't. You just take everybody in here. You got to have a heart big enough to welcome them, and then start shit. Do not become a ward of any institution. Don't become a ward of fame, because then you forfeit your free will. Then you start doing what everybody else wants you to do for the tabloids and the newspapers and the book jackets and blah, blah. You got to start writing for them. And if you got one, look, when you give up your free will, they call it in your reality, because I've never been in your reality, but they call it in your reality, retirement. That's what they call it, retirement, right? When you get a guy in prison who's done 50 years in prison, who's a ward of the state, they call that thing freedom. Now, when both guys die, the guy who's retiring is going to die, the guy who just did 50 years in prison is going to die. Guess what they both have in common at the end of their lives? This is what all wards of institutions have in common. They both regret not having lived according to their heart. The guy in prison is like, man, I should have never done that, man. I should have never done the drugs. My daughter grew up without me. My kids grew up without me. I had the best woman in the world, man, and I just disrespected her. It's the same thing this guy who worked for the insurance company I was like staying in the hospital. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I told my daughter I loved her, man. I can't remember the last time my wife, I don't even look at her anymore. It's the same thing when you become a ward of something. You forfeit your free will. And what I mean by that is your heart's, como dice el corazón, you forfeit that. And that's something I was stupid enough never to be able to forfeit. From the day that I was in Phoenix, after having a shootout with the DEA, and the judge said to me, I was 18 years old, how do you plead? From that day, I should have been smart enough to say, sir, Your Honor, hey, you know what? And I said to the judge, chinga tu madre. To the judge, I don't have nothing to say to you. I yelled at him, right? And then I put my head down and I mumbled, I'm sorry, Grandma, for disappointing you. But my grandma worked all her life. And all she wanted was one of her kids to go to school, and none of us had. 9 of us, one person went to school. I put my head down and I was on the verge of crying. I felt so much sorrow for disappointing my grandma. Right? I said, I'm sorry, Grandma. And then the judge said to me, what did you say? And that's when I looked up and said, Chica tu pinche madre. And when I said that, my sister was in the audience. She screamed, no, Jimmy, please stop. Have respect. I was like, I ain't forfeited my freedom to nobody. That was crazy, no? That was all impulsive. I was uneducated. I went to school. But he didn't deserve an explanation from me. This man had nothing to do with my life. He was part of this whole culture going to Gulf, trying to create, arrest poor whites, poor blacks, poor Chicanos. That was his quota for the month. He's going to get reelected now. I wasn't going to play that game. I am not going to be a ward of this game called injustice. You play it, but I'm not going to do it. And without even knowing what I was doing, I just said, no, I ain't playing your game anymore. And when I went to prison, it was like, that continued. The warden said, go to work. I said, I ain't going to play that game either. I'm not playing that game. Well, we're going to lock you up and you're not getting out. That's okay with me. I ain't going to become a ward of the prison. I'll tell you that right now. And when I went to prison, I said, that was it. I used to tell everybody, why are you doing it? Why are you doing this? Why are you getting out of yourself? Why are you getting up? Don't go! Dude, I jumped up, broke up a fight between a white guy and a black guy. I said, guys, you're fighting over a TV channel. And there's blood everywhere and knives. And I said, put the goddamn shank away. Come on, give me the knives, man. Stop fighting. It's over a stupid TV channel. The guard comes and guess what? You, Mr. Baca, are going to isolation for 3 months. Even though he knew you weren't the one fighting, you made a more grievous error than fighting. You broke up a fight. And that we can't have. Because this prison runs, it gets its legislative money from the legislature on violence between races. And when you start getting them to where they don't fight, that's a problem for us. We need to have the public think that they're violent. Because they don't think that. Oh my God, imagine if every prisoner that went to prison refused to work and started to read and write. Man, what would it do to our heads when the violence, we had to blame somebody, so now we ain't got nobody to blame. Now what happens? You're going to have shame with nowhere to put it. And man, that can get really bad sometimes. When you have shame and you can't put it on a brand new car, you can't put the shame on the Vegas trip, you got to put it in your face. When you look in the mirror each morning, you got the shame. When you don't have somebody to blame for that, it's called consciousness. You become awake. And they don't want that because there's a trickle effect, right? Once it starts here and it ends up here with an awakened public, then you don't get the Trumps anymore. The only reason Trump's up there is because we love Coca-Cola. We really are driven as wards of institutions. That's why he's there. Every one of us. I don't have a TV, but in my hotel room, I was blown away by the fact that they showed pizza and Diet Pepsi together like 3 times during a football game. And I swear to God, when I went out to the gym to lift weights, I wanted Diet Pepsi with pizza. I mean, they had me already working that game, you know? I literally went to the restaurant. Do you have pizza and Diet Pepsi? And then I realized, holy crap, where'd that come from? Because I never drink Diet Pepsi in my life. But I was starting to go down that road, right? I was going to become a ward driven by the advertising industry. I was becoming a ward. Whatever they advertised, I was going to go for it. Right? I thought, boy, dude, you gotta quit watching TV. I don't even have a TV. I haven't watched TV in 20 years. But just that little bit, oh man, all the DNA has got restructured. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you all later outside.
Tenemos unos diplomas para los que participaron y que Jimmy se los dé, les tomamos la foto y luego se quedan aquí para tomar la foto final. Entonces, Voy a mencionar su nombre, les voy a pedir que pasen. Chris Ríos,